Wildwood.
Okay, it is December 3, 2020. This is the Raynham Planning Board. I call the meeting to order, and I will start by telling everyone that you are being recorded.
We have to check on Chris.
Our member Chris Gallagher, are you there remotely? I take that as a no.
He says he can hear you.
Okay, so you're in communication with Chris?
Can you hear me now, Mike?
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Burke can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Apparently you're supposed to hit 6.
Okay. First thing on the agenda is a public hearing, Wildwood Path Subdivision, and that is a new public hearing, so Mr. Clerk, if you could read the notice.
In accordance with provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A and 41, Section 81T and 81U, and Raynham Zoning Bylaws, Article 14, the Raynham Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, December 3rd, 2020 at 6:10 p.m. at Raynham Veterans Memorial Town Hall, 558 South Main Street, to consider application for approval of a definitive plan and application for a special permit for open space preservation development for Wildwood Path. Proposed plan for 9 lots, including the existing single-family dwelling on 11.4 plus or minus acres of land at 730 Locust Street, Assessors Map 13, Plot 43, Raynham, Mass. Application is submitted by owners Kevin and Paula Ann Smith, Raynham, Mass. Plan prepared by Strong Point Engineering Solutions Incorporated, West Bridgewater, Mass. This meeting may be held virtually. A virtual meeting link will be shown on the posted planning board agenda on the Town of Raynham website at least 48 hours in advance of the hearing, or call the planning board office at 508-824-2745 for information. A copy of the plan and application may be viewed in full at Raynham Town Hall by appointment. Any person wishing to be heard or interested in this submittal should appear at the time and place designated. Raynham Planning Board, Dan Andre, Chairman.
And do we have someone for the applicant on the line?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. For the record, Eric Dine, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions.
Where is this proposed development?
This is at 730 Locust Street.
And there is an existing house at that address?
There is an existing house on that address. The house sits on approximately 11.4 acres. We're proposing an open space preservation subdivision at the site where the existing house will remain on 1 lot, and there will be 8 additional single-family home lots proposed.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and tell us the basics of what you're doing?
Sure. If I could, is it possible for me to share my screen so I can go through the plan set? I think I need permission to do that.
I am told that that is possible. Go ahead and give it a try.
All right. Screen share. Let me see. Okay, Okay, Mr. Chairman, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, as I mentioned, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering Solutions. I'm here tonight representing Locust Street Land LLC for a proposed open space preservation subdivision at 730 Locust Street. We were actually before the board informally a few months back. I want to say August, September, or somewhere in there. Just for a quick presentation at the concept level to obtain any feedback, kind of fill the board in on what our proposal was, and just, you know, open up a dialogue. And I think, if you recall, that meeting went pretty well. I think the project was rather well received. Since that time, we've just taken to the business of actually engineering the project now, taking it from concept level to a final set of plans, which we have submitted. We're actually before you tonight for two applications. The first of which is the special permit for the open space preservation subdivision plan. And the second application is the Form C definitive subdivision plan. So at the board's guidance at our last informal meeting, we've submitted those applications concurrently, and we've taken the required information and rolled them into one plan set just for ease of coordination and communication. So I'll walk through the finer points on this, if it pleases the board. So going to our existing condition sheet in the plan set, the site does, as I mentioned, sit on 11.4 acres. There is an existing single-family dwelling toward the front of the site, and then the back portion of the site, where things really kind of open up here land area-wise, the site is primarily wooded. There is an intricate network of trails, however, through this location. We do have two bordering vegetated wetlands toward the rear of the site, here and back over here. Those were confirmed through an ANRAD filing back in, I want to say it was July, maybe June of this year. So those are locked in and approved, and we have been to the site since the last time we were here, as we had discussed, to do some soil testing. What we find for soil testing on the site is we've got some very good material out there. There's a lot of surface rocks and boulders, but once you break through that, we've got some really good sandy loam materials up in this area here, and somewhere through the middle of the site there's a bit of a line where soils, as we go toward the wetland, actually get a little bit more granular, which actually works for our design very well. Just to keep moving through the plan set here, next sheet is a definitive subdivision plan with the final, the fine details on the technical division of the lots, but I will go through and spare that and talk off of the layout sheet. So as I mentioned, we are proposing a 9-lot open space subdivision. The first lot, lot 1, will house the existing single-family house that is to remain. The frontage for that lot will have to be pulled off of the newly proposed roadway. It is deficient on frontage. Once the roadway is approved, it would be deficient on frontage on Locust Street, so the frontage would have to come off of what we're calling Wildwood Path. Aside from that lot, there are 8 single-family lots to the rear of that lot. We have exceeded the amount of open space required by the bylaw. In fact, if I can zoom in a little bit here, we're required to have 40%. We're at 47% open space, and that open space does contain our proposed stormwater basin, which I'll touch on in just a moment, but it is still under the threshold of what's allowable for man-made impervious structures on the open space parcel. We're proposing a roadway of just over 600 feet long. It comes to 637.5 feet long. Standard pavement width of 22 feet, but we have proposed some waivers for the roadway cross-section to provide a right-of-way that is 40 feet wide, rather than the 50-foot wide right-of-way. I think the board has seen this before on similar open space subdivisions. It's a technique that's used really to maximize open space elsewhere and try to get the most bang for the buck there. But we are maintaining the 22-foot required paved width. We are proposing sidewalk along one side of the roadway on the south and eastern side. That sidewalk will wrap around the cul-de-sac. We are not proposing sidewalk on the northern western side of the roadway. In its existing condition, there is no sidewalk or even curbing on Locust Street. So really 2 sidewalks, a sidewalk on either side of the street here, especially for the level of pedestrian service that we feel that we'll need, is just overkill. Very similar with curbing, we've requested a waiver to get away from the vertical granite curbing. We are proposing granite curbing at the radii connection to Locust Street, but aside from that, we're looking at bituminous Cape Cod berm around the proposed cross-section. Just to go on a little bit more to talk about grading and drainage briefly, the site in its existing condition slopes from Locust Street down toward the wetland complexes. It is a gentle slope, about 3 to 4% across the site. So what we're proposing to do is a roadway that really matches grade as it goes through. I think the steepest grade that we have proposed in our roadway is right through this section here at about 2.5%. Aside from that, we're at 1% throughout the rest of the roadway maximum. And what that allows us to do is kind of take that slope, break it up a little bit with a tiered effect. It allows us to have the 2 lots on lots 8 and 9. It'd be a regular, not a walkout basement, but they fit very well into the landscape, not a lot of earthwork required to install those homes. And then as we go around the cul-de-sac from lot 7 around to lot 1, we get into some walkout basements in the rears. The front yards will be at street level, houses will be elevated slightly above street level, and then we have some walkout basements right back to existing grade in the back. So one of the things that we look at when we do these open space subdivisions is how we can blend into the natural landscape. And this grading scheme has really allowed us to do that. We have this area of development around the houses, and then outside of that, we're really right back to existing conditions. So we're minimizing the amount of earthwork we need, the amount of fill material that needs to come into the site, et cetera, et cetera. Stormwater management is via a stormwater management basin that I mentioned before is on the open space parcel. We have some very, very good sandy soils in this location, so this is able to be our primary means of not only peak rate flow mitigation, but also groundwater recharge and water quality treatment. I'll spare the gory details of the stormwater design, but all of the storm events analyzed, 2, 10, 25, and 100, reduce the peak rate of volume and the peak rate of runoff going to the discharge points. The discharge points on this particular subdivision are the 2 bodies of wetland that are back on the site. That's where everything flows now and where it will continue to flow in the post-development condition. Water and sewer will be municipal services. We're proposing a common force main through Locust Street, and we discussed this with the sewer department. Each individual house will have a lift station or a pump station for sewage in its front yard, and they will discharge to a common force main that will flow through a force main up to this point here at about station 200 of the roadway, and then from there it will flow gravity back to Locust Street. The reason for this just has to do with grading on the site. In order for us to design a sewage system that would flow gravity throughout the whole street, we would have to pick this street up quite a bit, and it would just blow the grading and the earth disturbance numbers out of the water on this, and would make the project really not as desirable as I think the layout that we have here. Just to move through the plan set a little bit more, we have our proposed profiles that show the cut and fills that we talked about. We're matching grades very well, with the exception of the cul-de-sac. We've got about a 4-foot level of fill at the cul-de-sac, but that allows us again to have those walkout basements and really match grades around the houses a bit. We provided a full erosion and sedimentation control plan in accord with the town's requirements and the requirements of the EPA's NEPDES program. And then a couple of detail sheets that I won't bother going into in too much detail, no pun intended. And then the last sheet in our plan set is the conventional lotting plan, the proof plan, if you will, that shows that in a conventional subdivision, we could subdivide this lot into 9 single-family home lots. And that's what sort of justifies, as you know, the lot yield for the proposed open space preservation plan. So certainly this plan is the key to the special permit that we've submitted. And then lastly, just by way of graphic, we like to provide sort of a graphic that shows an overlay of the lot and what we're proposing, to see how it fits into the surrounding communities. Obviously, Locust Street is here, Everett Drive is over here. This gives a good approximation of where houses will sit in relation to other houses, in relation to the property lines. It shows where our limits of clearing will be. We're providing a pretty substantial buffer all the way around this property, protecting the open space. Excuse me. I should also mention we've requested a number of waivers for this project from certain requirements of the subdivision bylaw. I can certainly go through those in any degree of detail that the board feels necessary at this point, but I do want to note of 15 of the waivers that we proposed, I believe it's 7 or 8 of them are related specifically to the cross-section of the roadway. So rather than just request a blanket waiver for that, we've gone through and identified each particular section of the bylaw that would apply. So those are the finer points. We have not received comment yet from peer review engineers or other department heads. Mr. Chair, I'll leave it up to you as to how much more detail you'd like me to go into, or I'd be glad to just open it up to any questions and go in your direction.
I guess late today, you hopefully received correspondence from the town engineer?
I don't believe I did receive anything from the town engineer. I can check my email right now.
Oh, no, it's okay. If you haven't had time to look at it, you haven't had time to look at it. You do know there's an issue with the road opening, because the road was just repaved.
Yes, I do know that there's been some discussion about a moratorium in place, and we will have to coordinate that with the highway department.
Some things that jumped out at me. You're going to have a sidewalk, but you don't want to have granite curbing on that side?
Excuse me, I misspoke. We do have granite curbing on the side of the sidewalk. We have Cape Cod berm on the opposite side of the roadway where there is no sidewalk. That's my mistake.
Okay. The stormwater parcel, drainage parcel, you're gonna have a fence around it, and what is the slope?
The basin itself is designed at a 3-to-1 slope. We have not proposed a fence around the basin at this point. It's funny you mentioned that. When we were before the board informally, one of the matters before us was a discussion about fencing around basins. And I don't know that it was clear that fencing is required or preferred in this case. So frankly, I am comfortable to put a fence or to not put a fence. I would defer to the wish of the board at that point.
There's some internal discussion on that for sure.
Sure.
Tell me about your sewer pump. You're not gonna have a big pumping station, you're just going to have a...
Yeah, so what it is it's a common force main in the roadway, and then each house will have its own individual pump station. Something like an E1 ejector pump, something like that. So it'll flow gravity out of the house into a pump station in the front yard, and then that pump station will pump up to the common force main, and then there'll just be one force main in the roadway that will ultimately flow gravity back to the sewer, municipal sewer system in Locust Street.
So each house will have a pump in its front yard?
Each house will have a pump in its front yard, and they're really minor pump stations. Some of these E1 systems that they have are about akin to the size of a basic sewer manhole. They're not giant vaults like what some people might envision.
Okay.
Well, they more look like the cover of a buried propane tank.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Matthew, any questions?
No, it looks pretty straightforward to me. I was reading over these notes.
Okay. Russ?
No, I don't think so.
I think the one question we had the last time was about the highway department and if they would want to see the sidewalk go around the whole cul-de-sac for plowing.
Well, we have wanted that,
Yeah.
so. Chris, are you there?
Yes.
You have any questions for now?
Yeah, I think, I know the applicant doesn't have Nich's email yet, but the first question was, will the road be public or private? And I think that's, if they plan on having it public in the future, it's a big difference on which way I go. If it's gonna be private, a lot of these things might not apply. But could the applicant tell me what the plans are? They wanna leave this open to become a public way eventually?
Our intention is that it will become a public way at some point in the future, yes.
Okay. Because if it was private, the basin would be private. If it's gonna be a public way, well, first, the first question was your sidewalk. On a development like this, I don't even think you need one. Personally, I think it's a waste of time and money, and you get rid of a set of your road. As far as your road opening issues, I don't think that would be any reason for us to deny anything. That's an issue with the highway department. And there are trenchless technologies that you could get to your sewer, get to your water without disturbing the road. A pipe jack and a horizontal driller. The other question was the basin design. Yeah, I mean, you can comply. He wanted a 15-foot berm width, which you wouldn't have any problem complying with. They also had a comment that they wanted the bottom of the basin 10 feet wide, which I have no idea what they're talking about there. If it's gonna be a narrow slit, but they wanted you to make it longer and narrower. And you can work this out with niche,
Sure.
but you're still gonna have the same areas. So the logic doesn't seem to make any sense, but, again, most of these comments I saw aren't insurmountable, and a lot of them are just details, a couple things you can work out with the engineer. But in general, I think it's a very nice design, it works, and, the elevations of what they are, as far as your cut and fill, governed by your catch basins at the cul-de-sac and your outlet on your basin. Is this basin gonna drain dry? Is that outlet at the bottom of the basin?
We have a 3 inches worth of recharge volume below the outlet of the basin. With the soils we had out there, we used the Rawls rate of 2.41, which I think is not conservative. We probably gonna drain a little bit better than that.
No, I know, I've designed 100 of these things, but if that's the case, you're not gonna have like a pond full of water that's a big danger to children because you're draining dry, well, within 3 inches. So the fencing's an issue that's up for discussion, and I think that's still ongoing. But the other issues are stuff you can work out with the design, but in general, I think it's a pretty straightforward development. I don't know what the rest of the board feels about getting rid of the sidewalk and the grass strip, in center in the road. But, I think it's something we could take care of in the next meeting. If you could meet with Niche and clean some of this stuff up and meet with the highway.
Great.
And that's all.
And I'll look forward to reviewing Nich's letter, hopefully tomorrow. I'm sure it just got lost in email somewhere, so I'm sure we can get all that wrapped up. It doesn't sound like it's that big a deal.
No, it just went out tonight, so you probably didn't get it.
Bob, do you have anything to add?
No, only, so Eric can contact me tomorrow before 9 o'clock. I can get you the letters from both the sewer and the highway and the niches. Niches concerns are wrapped up with the highway's concerns, so I can get both of those over to you.
Okay.
And then you can work on taking care of all those issues that both of those departments had. You might want to see, Mr. Chairman, if Steve Ventresca is on the line, if he has anything to add.
Good idea. Mr. Van Tresca, are you out there?
I am. Good evening, Stephen Ventresca with Niche Engineering. And, everything that was said makes sense. Appreciate the presentation by the applicant's engineer. The only comment that I will make on the drainage that Chris alluded to was that in the spirit of trying to maintain more open space, if there was any way we could look at the drainage to, instead of providing sort of that open basin, if there's any way to make it narrower and hug closer to the back of those property lines, just to help with that open space on that side. But other than that, you know, details such as sidewalks and whether they're needed or not, you know, I think are up for discussion, and we'd be interested to hear what the board, what they have on that and the input. And then, so I apologize, I should have copied you on the email earlier, but it was towards the end of the day. But if you want to have a discussion, I think you have my contact info, and we can start that discussion. So we have started an internal review, looking at the drainage this week, and then had a conversation with Highway Department on Tuesday, which generated the email that was sent out to the planning board tonight. So, but other than that, I think the comments that were made were appropriate, and then it's really getting into the weeds and details of stormwater report and layout and details.
So Steve, just so I understand the comment, this is Chris again.
Okay.
You, the basin to kind of run parallel to the back of the lot line narrow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, you're probably not gonna change the open space area, but I see what you're saying, it'll give you a nicer, more contiguous open space.
Right, exactly.
But the 10-foot width, you don't want the thing to be a 10-foot bottom. You want it to narrow necessarily, okay? Right.
Yeah, I think, yeah, no, and it probably, you know, could have been written a little more clear, but yeah, you said it perfectly. You know, hug it up against the back property line there, and so you can get some more separation, so you do have that contiguous parcel in the back. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's easy.
Yeah, that's something we'll take a look at.
Okay, great.
That's easy.
Is there anyone else who wants to be heard on this hearing?
Can I speak?
Sure, who might that be?
This is Richard Baskinson. I own 684 Locust Street.
Okay,
That abuts the north side of this proposed property.
okay,
And my only concern is about the buffer space between homes and my horse farm. There's a heavy wooded area that's involved, and if some of that could be left there, it serves as a great deterrent if in fact a horse got loose. Although there's fencing here, and I have not had a horse get loose in 10 years, having, you know, heavy wooded vegetation for 20 feet or so between my property line and the homes would help be a deterrent to keep the horses from going anywhere they shouldn't be.
well, we'll ask the engineer, how much, what's the distance between the house lot and his property line?
So this is Mr. Baskinson's property line here. We do have a 20-foot minimum open space buffer proposed between the lot and the, and his property line, which I believe is actually what he mentioned in his comment. So yes, we are proposing to leave a minimum 20 feet there untouched.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Okay,
You're welcome, sir.
My name is Lisa Zamita. I'm on Everett Drive on the other side of that parcel, and we had the same issue that we were hoping for. I think I'm speaking for most of my neighbors as well, that we wanted to have a buffer zone on our side as well, a buffer strip. And I was looking at the planning board, some of the regulations, and it says the buffer strip's supposed to be no less than 50 feet in width for an adjoining lot. So we just kind of wanted to make sure that we didn't lose any of our privacy that we've had for all these years, that we've loved. So we're hoping that that could be taken care of as well.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, this area here, again, is where we're proposing a minimum of a 20-foot open space, and this is right behind, and I don't know if these names are current, but this is Hardy and Jackson here. There's also a 20-foot wide drainage easement over the Jackson property here. From this location, it actually gets quite a bit wider through here. So we're talking about a 100-foot span where we put a 20-foot buffer strip, and then it widens out from there. If it's something to please the board, we could always look at doing a small no-cut easement on this lot it would provide for another 10 or 15 feet to just make that buffer strip a little bit more substantial there. One comment I want to make with regard to the required width of the buffer strip, what the bylaw says is that the board can impose a 50-foot wide but contiguous buffer if they feel it's appropriate. It's not a minimum requirement in this case.
Tell me about that drainage easement. That doesn't affect the parcel we're talking about, does it?
No, this drainage easement is completely off of our parcel. It backs up to the parcel.
Okay. Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, I just want to, it looks like it's not going to affect me as much as it is some of my neighbors closer up the top of the street, but they were looking to see, I know the new neighborhood that went in off of Bar Street on Granite Street, they put in just a row of, I think like spruce trees, privacy, and so I know that maybe if something like that could be done, just to keep that feeling of like forest in that area. Not as much for me, but it looks like my neighbors know it more at the top of the street.
I mean, what they could do, this is Chris again, there's only one small section that has only a 20-foot buffer, and then it opens up to 50 to an excess of 100 feet. You could, in that short section with its 20 feet, maybe enhance it with some white pines. And they start out small, but they fill in quite nice.
And we would be open to that. I don't take exception to that at all.
And you could dig them right out of your they'd be right on your property. You could just simply move them.
Yeah, you're right.
I like cedars and arborvitaes better than white pines personally, but we can talk about that. Anyone else out there?
Tomato.
Yes, this is Paula Hardy from 22 Everett Drive. So I am one of the ones that are impacted by that. So can you just repeat what you just stated, that are you going to leave it at the 20 feet and add some additional trees? Or is the plan to give us additional buffer in that space?
Yeah, that's my thought, added trees of shrubbery in that space.
What's there now?
Do we have any say in the type of shrubbery or trees that will be placed there?
You could have suggestions, yes.
Okay. Could we also have it farther than the 20 feet? What does it entail to, I know you said that up to 50 feet, how can we get some additional space? 20 feet is not very much.
Well,
what we could do, Mr. Chair, if I might make a suggestion, I'm just going over to my grading sheet here. You'll see this line here is our proposed tree line. So we've got a 20-foot buffer zone, and we're proposing along this line. We're not even proposing to clear within 20 feet of the property line. So what we could do is simply, and I'm going to use my drawing tool here, along this line that I just crudely drew in here, could add another 20-foot no-cut easement to that location. That would effectively give a 40-foot buffer zone of natural trees there. And I think if we did that, we would do that in lieu of additional plantings, because I feel like the additional plantings would be overkill. But we would be willing to give, on this lot in particular, just a no-cut easement to provide a better visual buffer between the house on lot 2 and the Hardy and Jackson properties.
okay, talk to your client about that. Anyone else?
I do have some comments. This is Ed from the Highway Department. I do have some comments regarding the project.
Yes, Ed.
having a little problem with my microphone. I just wanted to advise the board, I sent out an email today regarding the road moratorium, separate from the review of the subdivision project. And when we reviewed the project with Midge, we did it without regard to the road moratorium and just looked at the plans as they stand. So my comments regarding the subdivision are separate from the road moratorium issue.
I warned the engineer about the road opening issue. He understands and will be in touch with you.
Understood.
Anything else, Ed?
Just that Steve and I had discussed adding 2 catch basins at the mouth of the road at the entrance to Locust to take any storm water in that location.
Okay, that I
Is
didn't
that a
know.
high point, the entrance?
What's that?
The entrance where the road hits Locust.
Yeah.
Is that a high point, a low point? Is it along a slope? I mean,
It's actually,
I'm not adverse to adding catch basins, but not if they're not gonna do anything.
if I may, we actually graded a high point at Station 25 on purpose so that our water isn't sloping toward Locust, and Locust's water isn't really coming to where we are here. So if there are catch basins there, they would only be taking about 25 feet of runoff from our proposed roadway.
Yeah, I think
Well, not really what I'm asking.
you.
I'm asking what kind of, I don't have your topo sheet, I'll look at it. What your, the topo on Locust Street itself. In other words, if your subdivision is entering at a higher point, then it's a waste of time putting catch basins. If it's entering at a point that could be problematic and a low point, it might make sense to do that. But
I understand. Yes, let me, I will certainly look at that.
yeah, I mean, you need to know what's going on Locust Street before you make that judgment.
Kirk, you see that question on the right?
Yeah,
I mean, if it's high,
make sure we get accommodation, burning drainage on Locust Street.
No, I don't see it.
The question on the right-hand side,
Asking if,
Janelle Hughes.
Oh, right, I know what you're talking about.
because if you do take drainage off Locust Street, it may end up making your basin inadequate. So it would have to be coupled with an increase in basin size probably.
That's right, something that we're gonna have to.
That'd be down the line. That'd be on the town if they went to go that way.
We have a question from someone who's having trouble with their microphone. Where are you in relationship to Whippoorwill Drive?
Let me zoom out for a minute. Whippoorwill is, let me see if I can get that. In fact, if I can zoom in on the Locust Street here, on the Locust. All right, so here is the site. Everett Drive is down here. Locust Street comes this way. King Street's here. Whippoorwill comes through and kind of wraps into the north of us here. I believe our open space will be backing up to an open space parcel from Whippoorwill, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Is there anyone else? Okay.
Hi, I have a question. My name's Christina Pimenta. I'm on Whippoorwill Drive, and I was just reading the waiver application, and I'm just wondering why an environmental impact statement waiver is being requested. Don't you feel that this is important to do an environmental impact review to make sure that this subdivision isn't going to create an issue in this area?
In this case, with regard to environmental things, you know, the project is proposed to stay completely outside of all wetland resource areas, all 100-foot buffer zones to wetland resource areas. So with regard to things like that, wildlife, wetlands, things like that, we're not concerned with there being impacts, things like that. Beyond that, the values that are given in the town's bylaw are things related to traffic in things of that nature, which, given the neighborhood that we're in, how small in the grand scheme of things this subdivision is, we're not anticipating there to be any impacts to traffic and things like that. So we thought a waiver, requesting a waiver from the environmental impact statement was appropriate in this case. Environmental impact statement is a little bit of a misleading term because there's more in that section of the bylaw than just environmental. Okay.
Something just went haywire.
Yeah.
Echo.
Okay,
Have we lost the engine?
our town engineer will let us know if, after walking the property, if he thinks there's an environmental issue that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, we can certainly comment on that, and I will just recommend that maybe a memo outlining some of the highlights, typically water, sewer usage, whether there's irrigation, you know, a quick blurb on traffic, understanding that this is a low volume, 9-lot subdivision. Don't anticipate traffic being an issue here. But that might be something to look into, and I'll just put that out there for the engineer, whether they are interested in doing something like that. And because I know some of those environmental impact statements gets into trash removal and the amount of trash, and those are standard values that are available, that's used in other subdivisions, not just in Raynham, but in other areas of the Commonwealth as well. It's something we can discuss as we go through our review.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, and we're not opposed to providing some more information on that, so I think we'll come to terms on that, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else out there?
Yeah, hi, this is Deb Shaw from 175 Whippoorwill. Just wanted to see if you could show us more of a larger scale as to the effects of how it will back up to Whippoorwill. I see it on the right-hand side, but I'm not seeing.
I don't know this sheet. Yeah, this sheet doesn't show Whippoorwill in the relation of the subdivision to Whippoorwill, but this is kind of the best that we have to show how it blends into the surrounding community. I could take a look at, maybe before the next meeting.
You showed us a Locus Map, which did a good job of it, I thought.
Yeah, let me pull that back up.
Yeah, sorry for all the hammering in the background. We have a Girl Scout meeting going on from home as well.
I think that they have.
So here is the Locus Map. This is the site here. This is Whippoorwill Drive.
Right.
So we're quite a ways off of Whippoorwill.
Well, to the north, you have the Bassin property that's between you and Whippoorwill.
Right here.
And then to the east, you have a substantial amount of open space before you even get to the open space on Whippoorwill. And the lots, you're probably 400 or 500 feet from any lot.
Yeah, realistically, we gotta be at least that much.
Oh, you're easy.
Okay, so you're about 400 to 500 feet from any of the backyards, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, realistically speaking, from Whippoorwill, you know, nobody living on Whippoorwill will ever see this through the woods.
Okay, I think that's what our concern was, just, you know, ensuring that we don't lose a lot of that woodage in our backyards.
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you.
Maureen, are you able to get all these names?
I believe I have them all, yeah.
You're doing better, you're doing better than I am then.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Sorry, I had had a second question, but I couldn't get off a mute after he answered. This is Christina Pimenta again, from Whippoorwill. I don't know much about drainage and creating this, and where I am on Whippoorwill looks like I'm close to the wetlands area. So with the retention pond and the water runoff into that area, is that gonna have some sort of impact draining into there that could create some sort of water issue for myself and my neighbors?
It shouldn't, but
Mr.
I'll let the
Chairman,
engineer answer that.
Short answer to that is no. All the drainage leaving our site, we're required to design to mitigate both flow rate and volume to the discharge point. So basically, the rule of thumb is that we can't send any more water to one place in the proposed condition than is going there in the existing condition. So what our analysis has shown is that we're actually slowing down the water that's running to that wetland by about 5 to 10%. So this project won't result in a flooding issue or anything, especially not one that you would see on Whippoorwill so far away. Never mind the immediate neighbors.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to continue the hearing. And I guess the question we should have asked right up front, are we going to have a meeting December 17th? Nobody's going anywhere, so
No.
might as well have a meeting. Okay, everybody agree with that? Okay, December 17th, would the applicant be ready to go forward with this, with more information?
We'd certainly like to try to be, if we can put it on for the 17th, and if for some reason we're not able to, we'll request a continuance as we get a little bit closer. Is that okay?
That's okay with us, yes. Okay, I'm
Okay,
putting
great.
this on for 6:10 PM on December 17th. Okay, thank you all for your input.
Excellent.
And next,
Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it.
next up at 6:50, continued public hearing on 454 South Street West, Central Glass.
Hi, Tracy Gilmore here on behalf of the applicant Central Glass.
And Brian Dunn with MDL Land Development and Permitting for Central Glass as well.
Hello there.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board.
What has happened since our last meeting?
Okay, so we've revised the plans based on some of your comments that we received. I'd like to try to share that so we can see that, and Tracy and I can go over some of the changes that we made since our last meeting with you. So I just have to figure out how to.
Could I ask a question, Burke?
Sure.
Has Steve seen these revisions? Because I haven't seen a comment letter from him.
No, he hasn't. Yeah, he hasn't seen these. But these cases.
Yeah, sorry, Brian. We just received the plans, we're gonna say the same thing. We just received the plans, this evening, and we have not had a chance to review them and provide, a second letter. So we did provide an initial review letter, which Brian and Tracy have received, and I imagine that these plans are, in response to those comments.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, what we were trying to do is, get some of these revisions to you as soon as we could, and then have a discussion about it tonight, so that we can make sure that we finalize everything for the December 17th meeting. That's what we discussed during our last meeting with Mr. Andre and the planning board members that were in attendance at that time.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us what you have changed.
Okay,
I need to try to figure out how to share on this one here.
Brian, you should have Tracy do it, she's younger.
No, please.
It just told me that Brian is the new presenter, so.
All right, so it says I can share, okay.
Are these changes gonna mean much to us, or you would be better served having you go through them with Steve before the next meeting?
No, Chris, actually, some of them go to the placement of the parking around the building and whatnot, which was really a concern of the members of the planning board during the last meeting. I don't think that you were in attendance during that meeting.
First meeting, so before I do any action on it, I'm gonna have to review the minutes and the tape for the last meeting.
Okay?
Well, why don't we
All right,
start
can
with
everybody see
the glass to the ground and bollards and sidewalks? And if you caught the news today, somebody just drove their SUV through a Panera Bread this afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you're gonna be pleasantly pleased with what we're about to show you.
Okay?
Okay.
Before, Brian.
Yeah, here we are. Can everybody see the plan now?
What's the date on that? What sheet is it and what's the date on it?
This should be C4, and what is this?
It has yesterday's date. And they are just stamped draft plans because we just wanted to have something for this meeting for discussion to go over the layout changes before we finalize the plans and the architecturals.
Okay?
So, during the last meeting, I mean, I'll go over some of the stuff, and then Tracy, you can chime in here and there if we need if I need something else. So, as you can see in the front of the building, we added a sidewalk to the entrance here. Everybody can see my mouse, correct?
Yes.
We can.
You can?
Yes.
Okay, so we've added a sidewalk here. We've got the concrete bumpers and a full reveal sidewalk, 6 inches. We moved the handicap spaces to this location of the building. There's a new handicap ramp here. If you remember, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, we had handicap over here before with no sidewalk and just entrance doors here. We've added the sidewalk in the back as well. And then we've revised the back of the building too, to allow for bollards on either side of the entrance doors, the man doors, and to allow for the parking to have some protection of the building in the back of the building as well.
Yeah, so the architect actually shrunk the building 3 feet in the back to allow for that 3-foot painted walkway so that the doors aren't opening out into the parking aisle in the back of the building.
So this was probably the big takeaway from the meeting that we had last time with the planning board. So we wanted to make sure that this was the right direction that you were looking for, because I thought that we heard that some of the members weren't in favor of granting the plan if the parking was right up against the building.
It's true. It's too bad. The original plan sure looked good, but safety issues are more important.
Understood. So we listened to what you had to say, and we made those revisions right now to the plans. We also we updated the lighting plan, which is part of that package, based on some of the comments we received on lighting, and we also added the site distances. That was one of the other concerns that the planning board had. So we put those on the landscaping plan. Let me get to that. So you can see we did the site distance measurement, and where if the car was here, at the new entrance. Then we're about 335 feet to the right, towards the west, and then over here, another 335 feet to the site distance to the east. So we're able to verify how far we can see from that new entrance, which is, as you can see, is in the vicinity of the existing driveway that was there before.
Could you
when this
bring
was
the
a
map,
single-family
could you
home.
bring the map up a little? We can't see the street, there you go. I still.
So we're talking,
I know there's not
So this
much
is
you can
that
do
site.
about it, but you are awfully close to your neighbor's lot line.
right, so we heard what you had to say about that too, in regards to the existing curbing that's out there. Originally, we had vertical granite at the front entrance of this new proposed driveway, Mr. Chairman. And then, you know, trying to put granite curbing into the Cape Cod berm probably would be a little bit more problematic. So we're saying have the Cape Cod berm match into the existing Cape Cod berm that's out there adjacent to the parking area for the flea market.
Bob, what are your thoughts on that?
You talking about the throat opening?
Yeah.
I would have to defer to the highway superintendent and see what he'd like to see there.
We would like you to call up the highway superintendent and talk to him about that.
Okay. We did make some changes to the sewer design based on our discussions with the sewer department as well. So
Brian, I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Mr. Chairman, is what's the posted speed limit for South Street West, or what was used for the site distance calculation?
Let me look in our impact statement.
Yeah, I'd have to verify that based on what we put in that report, Steve.
All right, thanks.
And then we did update the lighting plan. But I think that Steve was looking for a little bit more off-site stuff in regards to like 50 feet or more. It's close to it. So, but I mean, it does show that we're zeroing out at the property line already, so we're very close to it. And then the pole heights are on the plan. You can see them a little bit clearer here on the table in regards to the pole heights and the mounting heights.
How many poles are there and how high are they going to be?
Right now, the pole height, mounting height will be 15 feet.
And you have 3 of them in the front and 4 of them out back?
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3 in the front, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the back. And then there's the wall, then we have the wall packs on the front of the building, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the front, and 1, 2, 3, 5 in the back. And then there's also one on either side of the east and west side of the building. One here and one here.
And you say there's no light going on to neighboring properties?
That's correct. Based on the plan that I have in front of you, it's 0 at the property line.
On 2 sides, property line's all wetland anyway.
Yeah, correct. So even in even in the side of the flea market, as well as out onto South Street West, it's 0.
Yeah, and they're the only two sides that could possibly be impacted.
They're commercial anyways.
What is your back property line back up to?
It's all,
So the back property line is all wetlands. Let me get to the existing conditions plan, Mr. Chairman. So here's the existing conditions plan. You see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so here is our property site in the middle. Here is the flea market to the right. You can see the accessible parking in this area here. And then this is all wetlands and wooded area in the back here.
Once you get past those
And then
woods, what is there?
I'm sorry?
Once you get past those woods at the back, what is there? In other words, when do you ever get to any residential?
Oh, it's, I think about 300 feet, Brian, sheet C31 is the 300-foot abutters plan. And we show the 300-foot abutters radii. So there's a subdivision, it's more than 300 feet out. Right at that residential A line, so that's probably about 400 feet out.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that backs almost Camel Way, I think. Way back.
If you look at the locus on the front map, it's quite a ways out.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is really the direction we're going with on the revised set of site plans. I think that all of the other comments that Steve and his staff had from Niche Engineering can be readily addressed and sent out to him for a review before, so we can have another meeting on December 17th. If you're okay with the changes that we've made so far based on your comments.
Well, I have a paper plan, and your layout and materials plan is October 29th. Do we have any plans that are newer than that?
Yeah, so the plans that we have, that you should have, that we sent to Maureen this morning, so we could have something to discuss, should have a revision date of 12/2 on the left-hand side of the sheet.
Lower left.
So I don't think we submitted any paper copies to the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we have them electronically today, 12/2.
Okay. So, I'm not seeing bollards along the sidewalk
In the front.
in the front.
What we put was concrete bumpers in front of the monolithic sidewalk, and there'll be 2 bollards in front of the accessible spaces to hold the signs.
Well, we need bollards in front of any parking space.
We can add that.
Like to have bollards instead of the bumpers.
All the bumpers,
Yeah, and the architectural,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the architect also added that 2-foot wall around the front of the building that you saw previously around the side. And 2-foot stone wall.
Yeah, so in the front of the building, you have, instead of having it flush, there's a 2-foot wall.
It doesn't
It's
protect
part of
the
the
people on the
foundation.
sidewalk.
Plus you have the sliding automatic doors. You just go right through that.
you have people on the sidewalk who aren't protected, and you have doors that open, there's, no protection there.
Would rather bollards and
Yeah,
stuff.
you're gonna have a hard time convincing us of anything but bollards.
Okay, loud and clear.
I mean, other option would be planters, but they probably intrude on the sidewalk.
Mark and Fallon, are you okay with what the recommendations are that they're discussing in regards to putting bollards instead of the concrete bumpers?
I thought it was only me.
Mark and Fallon, you're still muted.
Press *6.
Are you guys in the same room by any chance?
Are you able to hear us now?
Yes.
If they're in the same room, it's gonna be feedback.
You can hear him. You can hear him now, I think. Did she just say?
I can hear you now, Fallon.
Did she call?
Yep, bollards are certainly something that we can incorporate for additional public on the sidewalk. So if we have to put two in front of each space, I would be surely on line with that.
That's great. Nice looking building.
Okay, as I see it, we have the issue at the street, and you're going to talk to the highway superintendent, and I don't see any way for you to get around the bollards. You'll have to figure that out. Board members,
I think,
do you have?
yeah, I think we have a plan for the bollards now, yes.
Okay.
You just agreed.
Board members, do
What's
any
the
of
issue?
you have anything to add?
What was the issue at the street, Burke, that you mentioned? Is it that the entrances are really close together?
The entrances are really close together, and they want to not have granite, they just want to have Cape Cod berm.
Okay.
Does that match what's
I'd rather
That's what's existing out there right now.
So, but again, you can talk to the highway, that's his layout.
Okay.
Are there any other issues that anybody knows of?
I do have a question for the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Brian, are you sure that none of these exit doors on this building are going to be swinging doors, outswing doors? Because if that's the case, I think I heard you were planning on a 3-foot walkway. That does not meet the building code, 3 feet. It had to be bigger than that.
Okay, so in the back, that's the area of the 3-foot wide access aisle.
The
So
front,
that's what the architect came up with to give us access in the back of the building. We can verify the code on that
the
with
front,
him and make sure that that's adequate enough. If it isn't, then we can discuss, making that another, at least a foot wider if we can.
is the front walkway 4 feet wide?
I think we have a 5-foot wide sidewalk in the front.
Okay, that's it.
Yes,
And is the back walkway even with the ground level in the parking area, or is it elevated from the parking area
No, it's the same elevation,
as the parking area?
yes.
Okay.
That's why we have bollards in the back next to the doorways.
Okay, I believe that covers my concerns. The other thing I heard someone say, the bollards in the front, that the requirement, I believe, and the planning board can confirm this, is 1 bollard in front of each spot, not 2 bollards in front of each spot.
All right, so if we provide 1 per parking space,
One in the
that's
middle of
gonna
each,
be adequate for the planning board?
1 in the middle of each parking space.
Okay.
And the doors in the back all open out, Bob.
Yeah, but as long as the walkway is not elevated and they can step back off the walkway into the parking area, that shouldn't be a problem. Handicap access ramp in the middle of the front walkway, is that detailed?
We have it shown, but we can blow up a detail, and show the grades across it, making sure we're meeting the minimum and maximum grades on that area. We do have the typical detail on the plan, but we can detail it because it's right up against the building.
Brian, and I'll just add to that, in addition to the handicap ramp, if you could spot grade the handicap parking spaces as well and the access aisle.
That was actually what my intent was going to be, is to put the spot grades there, but thanks, Steve, yes. Good call.
Yeah, the more the better.
Understood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything else to say tonight? No? All right, you ready to go on the 17th? Brian?
I'm trying to know what did you say?
Brian, are you ready to go on December 17th?
We should be ready to go on December 17th.
All right, I'm continuing this hearing till 6:15 on the 17th of December. Maureen, time to act, no problem, or?
January 2nd.
January 2nd, so we'll need to either make a decision or get an extension of time.
I think that we should be in good shape to be within that time frame. But if we have to, we would definitely extend that time frame for you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The hearing is continued. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, really appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody.
Next up at 7:15, public hearing, continued public hearing on 1766, 1788 Broadway. Do we have an applicant out there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bob Forbes with Zenith Consulting Engineers, and also the applicant himself, Anthony Ferrara, is here as well.
Hello there. Okay, what do you have for us today? You got some mail from our engineer yesterday, and you have a reply today. What have you come up with?
That's correct. I'm sorry.
What have you come up with?
So what we did is we responded to the original niche review letter last week. Steve got us the review comment, the comments on that letter, which we received this morning, and there were 3 outstanding items. And Steve was good enough to work with us today, and we believe we got all 3 of those items resolved. If I could share the screen, I'd be happy to quickly go over what's different than what this board has seen since the last time we presented to you.
By all means, go for it.
Okay, someone just needs to help me out and get that. Okay, great. Can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there are a couple minor changes. It looks very similar to what this board had seen the last time we presented, because there really hasn't been much change. Steve asked us to coordinate with MassDOT on what the curbing should be out at the entrance, and we did that. They wanted to see vertical granite curbing, so we have vertical granite curbing shown at the entrance radii. We discussed with the board where we understood you needed those bollards in the front of those parking spaces, and we provided those. So if I zoom in a little, you can see them a little better. So we provided bollards in front of every parking space, as you requested. We had a couple of minor changes to the grading and drainage plan, and if I can get to that, let me see. There we are. I had forgotten to put on an overflow spillway. So, one of the changes is I added the overflow spillway, which you can see here where my cursor is. The other item is we had some roof infiltrators to meet the recharge requirement for stormwater management policy. And back and forth with Mr. Ventresca, we just simply couldn't we had one here and one here. We couldn't meet the requirement to have 2 foot separation between those roof rechargers and the groundwater. So this system down here did have the 2 foot separation, and we were able to make this work and to exceed the requirement for recharge on the site. So that's pretty much it. And one of the other things this board had not seen is the architecturals and the color chart. And just one more thing before I'd like Tony to take over to talk about the colors of the building and whatnot. He mentioned that he was going to talk to you about the last meeting. But there were 2 waivers that we discussed the last time I presented in front of the board. And they were simply for the need for a landscape architect to stamp the plans. And the other one was for the requirement for the plans to be at a scale of either 1 inch equals 20 feet or 1 inch equals 40 feet. And these are 1 inch equals 30 feet. So I did discuss that with the board last time. And let me bring up the architecturals. Tony, do you want to talk about these at all? You're not on, Tony. You gotta unmute yourself.
You hear now?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so I think last time we were just talking about the, basically the space metal building, the colors and whatnot. I don't know if you have the colors.
I do. I have a color chart too, if you wanted to bring that up. But you can simply see on these architecturals that it's a simple space metal building that's going to be constructed there. And this is the color chart.
We chose the ash gray with a charcoal gray roof, and all the trim will be charcoal gray.
So the side of the building, I believe, is going to be ash gray, and the roof charcoal gray. Is that what you said, Tony?
That's correct.
And if the board wants to have any input on that, I think Tony would certainly want to discuss that with you.
Any board members have any choice of colors, or we're fine with? Okay. Yeah, we'll go with your colors.
Okay.
If you two don't have anything to add right now, Steve Ventresca, you still there?
I am, Mr. Chairman, still here, and as Mr. Forbes stated, we worked together earlier this afternoon just to come to an understanding and agreement that because that infiltration system could not meet that 2 foot separation requirement from the stormwater handbook, and that they had sufficient capacity in their basin and in their second recharge system, that it made sense just to eliminate that first basin. And then the only thing, and then he provided calculations that show they would draw down for the stormwater system. So they meet the requirements. They're reducing rates from the pre-development condition. The only thing I think needs to be added to the plans or just clarified, now that they've removed that underground system to the north of those buildings, is there a pipe that needs to go to the basins or connect into other drainage within the site? So just sort of not clean up, but just clarifications on where, making sure that the roof runoff is captured in utilities. Other than that, and a waiver request for the landscape architect plan being stamped, or the landscape plan being stamped by landscape architect. We do not have any other issues or concerns.
And I can address that piping issue, Steve. That system is designed just to take the roof runoff from that one building, that the piping does lead to that roof recharge system. So we don't intend to change that. That's what the calculations that I provided for you today that were based on.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the system that was removed.
It'll simply go right onto the ground, just like the other two buildings that we weren't.
Okay. And then pick up in the catch basins on the parking lot.
That's exactly correct.
Okay. And just to confirm, you have enough pitch on the parking lots. I think you have more than 1% on the parking grading, so that you're not going to have any standing water there.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob, do you have anything to add?
Only on design. Just want to bring to the board's attention that they're basically looking at just 4 boring steel buildings. In the past, you've asked for some kind of architectural design that enhances the look of the building. We have one across the street, now down the street, that had some different panels and some stonework added to the front of it. We've had numerous buildings around town built where there's some different kinds of siding materials used on the roadside to break up the look of an industrial, blah building. Just bringing that to your attention that you've done in the past. Whether you want to do it with this development or not is up to you. And I'd also would recommend that we defer any approval until next meeting, until the engineer can clean up the list of waivers and the list of conditions, so that I can have a review with Steve Ventresca, and then you can read them off as part of the approval process at the next meeting.
And I want a final plan to look at too.
Yes.
With the drainage.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I could not hear Bob when he was speaking.
You have a very plain-looking building. We're wondering if you can dress it up some, on the street side at least.
Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I could give them the colored plan that I have and see. I mean, realistically, you only have 2 50-foot bases that you see from 138. I mean, we can maybe do some stonework at the bottom half, maybe.
That's the sort of thing we're looking for, just so it doesn't look like a plain old space metal building.
It could be similar to Ryan Iron buildings, just obviously a nicer color.
I think Ryan Iron might have some masonry walls and something that breaks it up a little bit, but
Yeah.
I leave it up to you. I'm just letting you know what you've done in
No,
the past.
some stone or masonry walls, something to just dress up the street side.
Yeah, that's fine, we can look at that.
Okay.
And I can send, Bob, I had a, an aerial photograph and everything done, like a conceptual plan, all colored and whatnot, so they can see, so I can kick that over for the next meeting.
Yeah, it's not up to me to approve, it's up to the board, so if anything you can share with the board so that they have a comfort level of what this is gonna really look like and not just a couple of color swatches would be helpful.
Maureen, time to
Yeah, I
add?
actually have the building all drawn up and treated.
January 21st,
Okay,
no, January 14th.
all right. Okay, can we put this on for the next meeting, December 17? And should you be ready to go by then, you'll have your new plans done. They'll be reviewed by Steve Ventresca. You'll have some ideas on what you're gonna do to dress up the front of the building. You can run them by Bob Iafrate.
Yeah, no, that's no problem.
Okay. I will continue this public hearing for 1766, 1788 Broadway until December 17th at 6:20 p.m. Oh, and don't forget your waivers that we'll have to go over too.
Mr. Chairman?
And how would you like those, in letter form, or you just want me to add them to the plans?
Both.
Should be in letter form on the front page of the plans that are gonna be approved.
Yeah, in letter form is fine for the next hearing. We're gonna go over them. And then they will have, the final waivers will be put on the plan before it gets signed.
You got it.
Did I hear Chris out there?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, one more question for the applicant.
sure.
Tony, what's your intention on the address of this property? We probably should clean this thing up instead of having two addresses, maybe have one address with unit numbers? Or are you gonna try to have a lot line and have two different addresses?
No, I mean, if we can keep it with one in unit numbers, that'd be great.
All right, so we'll have to
I
do
think
some.
you could probably get that building inspector.
We can discuss that at a later date, you and I.
Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, that's it for public hearings. For general business, Cornerstone Estates is going to be a private road.
2 weeks.
And they have prepared a legal description of the road and citing the concrete bounds that we required to be put in, which they did. It needs to get recorded, and in order to get recorded, they need to do something. They need to either deed the road to the homeowners association, or their attorney needs to prepare something that will get this on record at the Registry of Deeds. Bob, who have you been dealing with?
The owner, Mr. Cons.
Okay. And he's looking for a release of funds.
He would like to have the town release the funds so that he can transfer this over to the homeowners association. So however you want me to handle this, if you want to make a motion to release the funds subject to, I can see this through whatever avenue you'd like.
I'd like to see what he does before.
Well, I think he's going to be looking for our guidance on what he does. That's
Okay. If he had an attorney, he could give me a call. I can't remember who his attorney is.
Would you like to approve it subject to you discussing with the attorney how it's going to be recorded?
Well, first of all, do you two have any questions on it? You know what we're talking about?
We just need to have a way to get this legal description
I
recorded somewhere.
recorded at the
We can't
Registry of
just
Deeds.
Walk up to the registry with this.
That one won't fly.
So it's getting transferred to the homeowners
Either
association?
the homeowners association would be one way, and an attorney's affidavit would be another way. I think I could do it the first way. The homeowners would be the better way.
But you can, I mean, we can approve subject to you approving. You're the
Yeah.
attorney, you can make sure it gets done.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the release of funds concerning Cornerstone Drive, subject to Cornerstone Drive being deeded to the homeowners association and being reviewed by a member of this board prior to release.
You need to have something further in there about, so that this legal description
Well, if
gets
they,
recorded
if
somewhere.
they deed it to the homeowners association, that deed is gonna have the, is gonna have this description in it.
Yeah, but,
Well, and that the deed be recorded at the Registry of Deeds with the correct legal description. That do it?
I mean, I'm upset, but it's a simple page or two document with a description that gets signed by the owner and gets recorded for the, whatever the recording fee is nowadays.
Right.
The only issue is if when you go and talk to the attorney, he says, why don't we just do an affidavit, or the other option that you said, we're not approving you, our motion is only to
If he-
transfer it.
Well,
But if that has to happen, we're fine.
yeah, if he doesn't want to do it the way I just said, he doesn't get the money.
Okay.
Till we come up with something,
Okay.
so.
I asked him
I
to
mean, you
record a
don't need-
document, he may have done it already, so
Pretty simple.
maybe a recorded document, so.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll reach
We'll-
out to him.
We'll find out.
Okay, so second that, I guess.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chris?
Abstain.
Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay.
Bert, I have a question. Are you releasing the bond money and the review funds, all money?
Oh, yes, all funds being held. And I have a release of funds, Raynham Preserve, that we already voted on. Take signatures on that. It's only the top one you need to sign. All right, we don't have any minutes. Correspondence, I don't see any. Planning coordinator update.
This is something I got from the hotel at 5 Commerce Way with their landscaping. They're requesting a bond reduction. They have I believe a $30,000 bond for landscaping. Based on the discussion we had at the last meeting where the board decided not to take any action on approving the landscaping until the spring, when it was in full bloom. The applicant or the owner is requesting a bond reduction. He emailed me looking for $25,000 of that $30,000 to be returned. That's his request. I'm just bringing it to your attention to see if you have any comfort level of returning any part of that bond or this amount.
I have no comfort level. Well, give me some background. They did some landscaping, which was next to nothing.
Well, originally, their approved plan showed an abundance of landscaping, lots of bushes, lots of trees, lots of plantings. And when it came for them to do the installation, they came back to the board and they asked for a reduction. And I think the board asked for a plan. They were given a plan that was substantially less than the originally approved plan. When it was installed, it didn't look like it was sufficient, and the board asked them to do more plantings, which they did like the third time around. Unfortunately, they did it late in the season, probably did plantings in late October, early November. By that time, all the green and all the bloom is gone. So when they asked the board to review it, and I believe some members of the board went out to take a look at it, there's really not a lot of, it's not growth
Not a
season,
lot
so
to
it's
look at.
tough to take a look at. So the board decided to defer this until springtime to review it once it was in full bloom. So when I went back and told the applicant what the board's decision was, he in turn sent me a request to get some of his bond money returned. And I'm bringing it to your attention now. I believe there's $30,000 being held.
Is it all just for the landscaping, or
It was just
were
for
there other
some
things?
outside work. The building part of it's been complete. So if you have any comfort level in that number or a different number or nothing at all, I'll bring it to your attention and I'll respond to him accordingly.
What was,
Do we have an actual request in front of us for tonight?
I have an email request that I failed to distribute. I just got this earlier, earlier today.
So if it's not, I don't know if it's not an agenda item, I'm not sure if we can act on anything.
Well, it's part of my agenda, my discussion, Chris. I figured I could bring it up in my discussion.
Yeah.
What was,
If you'd like me to make it
what would
official, we
your-
can do it the next meeting. It's up to you.
Well, we might as take what they call a straw vote on it anyway. Chris, how do you feel about giving the guy money? How much would you release,
Well,
how
I'm
much
asking-
would you hold?
What would Bob's suggestion be? He's gone out there and looked at it.
Well, I think we've all gone out there and looked at it, and it's pretty meager.
Yeah, when I looked at it, I don't know if it's changed, but when I looked at it probably 3-4 weeks ago, it was pretty late.
And I'm concerned with how much is actually still alive.
4,000 lane.
Bob, what was, the original plan I remember had an awful lot of landscaping right around the building, close to the building.
When you say landscaping, you're talking about plantings?
Yes. But I seem to remember you saying something came up that something was done wrong that prevented any of that from happening.
Well, the back of the building was, the elevation was, the foundation was put in too low, which eliminated some landscape areas, because now they had to do some drainage work. Most of the landscaping, those on the side and the front of the building where you see it. I mean, if you're asking me what my thoughts were, I mean, $30,000 is a lot of landscaping. I mean, if you wanted to give a portion of that back, I wouldn't, I wouldn't give more than half of it back, but that's up to you.
Well, that's, I just, there's no landscaping, like plantings really much around the building, but there's not gonna be, like they can't.
The plantings are in the islands.
Yeah, and around the
parking lot,
perimeter and
on
the
the
front,
perimeter.
which they've done pretty good adding to all that. The big place that I see the difference is the building itself. You drive into that left side of the building and you look at the building and it's just bare building. But they can't really add anything to there. So it's not like we can, it's not like we're holding the money for them to do that, because it just can't be done at this point.
Well, my feeling is based on the job they've done so far. I'd like to know what percentage of those building plants are still alive come spring.
Yeah. No, I could see giving some of it back.
I think with
not all.
Burke,
Not
in
25.
I think where you're going is saying it would be nice to give them incentive to finish the job, and holding maybe even if it's a little more, it might be a little more insurance.
I say we hold back 15,000. Got something to say on this?
I'm in agreement with 15. I was gonna say 15,000 should cover more than enough of the plantings that are remaining.
Well, and again, I'm concerned with how many are still alive come spring.
Yeah.
So 15 sound right to you? I think we need a formal letter, but you can tell him, don't ask for any more if you're not getting it.
I will make this email part of the next meeting's agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Burke. That's what I was looking for, was what would be a number that would be enough to have them comply and complete their job.
Okay, good. I think we're all in agreement, Chris.
So you can continue to think about this, and you can make a formal decision at the next meeting in 2 weeks. That's all I have.
That's all you have?
That's all I have.
Okay, Serpent update.
I don't have any updates at this time.
Okay, are you having meetings or?
The last meeting that they had, I wasn't able to attend.
Okay.
The very last
But
one.
they're actually meeting,
Oh,
getting
yeah.
together?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, not in person, they're still doing remote.
Oh, it's still remote?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have some plans to sign. Is there anything else that anybody wants to add to anything?
No, the only on a personal note, Burke, I haven't been going to these meetings because of the COVID and all that. I'm diabetic, I'm a dangerous person, but my mom just got done 3 weeks of total battle with COVID and pneumonia, and she came home today. So, 91 years old, tough luck.
Glad to hear she's feeling better. And I'm sorry that she's gone through what she's gone through for the last 3 weeks.
It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Just be careful, it's
Okay.
the holidays, hopefully everybody will be home for it.
Send her our best wishes, and we'll look forward to seeing you on, hearing from you on December 17th.
Okay, sir, thank you.
All right, that it, everyone? I make a motion, we adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And let's go sign some plans.